All right, we got a special treat. We got ourselves a 2009 Toyota Camry with the 2.4 liter, but we've had an intermittent start problem, so now let's go and figure out what's going on with it. All right, we brought in this customer vehicle. We had a alternating no start where it would semi-start one time and then not start another time. So now we're gonna look at our ignition to see what is going on with that. So let's get into it. Yeah, we're gonna pull the key away. And it's not gonna start. So no start on there because the key is away from the ignition. So now I think it's gonna starts right away. So the issue with our faulty misstart was the key's broken and the transponder is not getting the to the PCM. And so now when we bring the key closer, it allows the engine to put a spark to it. All right, so now we are looking at the PCM view, and we've actually back probed into the ignition coil. And so now we're looking at the red line above is what the PCM gives out to each individual ignition coil. And so what it's basically saying is that's the time of firing order. So you can see it fires, and then about, I'd say, 25 milliseconds to 35 milliseconds later, it fires again. And so that's the actual firing of the PCM to each individual ignition coil. But that blue line is each individual ignition coil. So we actually probed in onto the first ignition coil, and you can see that blue line as it goes up where those two square wave peaks cross each other. They actually, it's a signal and then a signal return saying basically that the spark plug is fired, and now it can pretty much look, and it also gives better time for misfire data and can hook up to the O2 sensors. All right, so now this is our connector view. So if you look all the way on the left box, you can see that we first plugged into that blue square wave that you saw. That was just two square waves on there. It was connector 3, which is the ECM control module talking to the ignition coil. And so that was pretty much, that's the simple individual signal going out to the ignition coil. But you can see that we also connected our IGF, which was that red square wave, which was connected, you can see, by all four IGF ignition coils. See, they're all connected, so that's why we had individual 4 of them. So that was pretty much coming in, and it was connected to connector pin number 2 on all of them. But that's pretty much our connector view. So our problem ended up being the key location and the security fault with the car. It believed that the key was actually not located in the car because the key was broken. All we say is just probably replace the key and get it recalibrated to the car, and it should start right up, no problem. All right, now so let's look over how ignition coils actually work. So we've got a primary side and a secondary side inside that actual ignition coil. So battery voltage and ground are on the primary side, so those will have like 12 volts coming through here, and it only is about 8 to 11 loops of actual wire, and that will induce voltage, not current, into our other wire, which has a lot more windings, around 8 to 11,000 windings, and so it goes tons of windings. So it's all about a ratio of how many these windings to these windings. So you can jump your battery voltage from 12 volts to 12,000 volts, because if you do 1,000 times more windings on this side than this side. And so this is very important. And so now we're going to talk about how it uses that jump in voltage to actually cause a spark. So this is what a PCM, well, this is actually what the spark plug sees. So you've got the primary side, you've got 12 volts, comes in all the time. Then the PCM, this is measured from the battery voltage up here. So the PCM grounds it, so you're going to have all your voltage going in, and it's going to dwell. This is dwell time. So this is saturating this side with as much voltage as it can, and it's a very, very short time, and you can see our amperage. If we had an amperage line, it would come in and then slowly increase until it saturated, which is about 7 amps. then they quickly close this field, which causes a ginormous voltage spike of 120 volts all the way into this side. Now, if it's 120 volts on this side, now if we times that by, let's say, 100, 300 times, you can have all the way up to the thousands of voltage. And so that causes the big jump across that spark plug. And then we have our burn line, which is a constant voltage, you'll see. And then over time, it can't push that voltage anymore across that spark plug. So it dies out to this waveform until it slowly reaches back to 12 volts. Alright, so now we're looking at heat ranges on spark plugs. So we're going to get a little tutorial on what heat ranges are on spark plugs and what does it mean, what are the pros and cons of each one. So you've got a cold plug and you got a hot plug, and then these all have different varying range numbers. So our cold plug, we have an insulator that's connected to the ground that dissipates heat from that insulator to the actual threads, then into the block. So they'll have more insulator, which means it'll be colder, so it can disperse that heat faster. The Pro dissipates heat faster, its longevity is a bit longer, and it prevents pre-ignition. So, because it keeps everything cold. But the con to this, with it being so cold, is that deposits can form from the fuel and carbon buildup, so it won't want to burn away. Whereas the hot is the exact opposite on the other side. There's almost no insulation, so only a little bit can get out, so it's really, really hot spark plug. So the pro is that the deposits can't really stick to this because it's burning so hot that it won't even stick to it. But the cons is, because it's so hot that, let's say you get fuel coming in, and this thing is so hot that it can actually ignite the fuel on the wrong time, causing pre-ignition, which would be very bad and can cause damage to the engine. Thank you so much for watching. Glad I could help. If you have any more questions, leave them in the comments, and comment something that I should do next.